r/NuclearRevenge featuring special guest John Wick himself. So, a bit of backstory. I'm prone to random seizures and have a service dog because of that. Recently, I had an encounter with an entitled parent. During the second encounter, I had a seizure and she started kicking me. Then she tried to steal my dog. She got arrested and stuff, but after that, I got really nervous and started carrying a knife around with me. I think you see where this is going. Story. I don't know how, but the son of the entitled parent found out where I lived. I don't know who he was until he started leaving notes at my door. I still live with my mom because I'm a minor, but I never tell her what's going on. She found out about the entitled parent encounter because I had to be carted off in an ambulance. This was no exception. I just took the notes and threw them out. However, I was walking on a trail behind my house when this went down. Main event.
The main event of the evening!
Entitled son came out of nowhere. He acted friendly at first but became more and more nasty as he continued talking. He talked about how his mom was innocent. A bystander took a video of her kicking me while I was having a seizure, grabbing my dog, and then getting tased when she tried to flee the police, and how I ruined his life. I was really getting nervous at this point, and my dog could sense it as she moved closer to me. I also had my other hand in my pocket on the handle of my knife. Now, it seems that assault runs in the family because after his screaming reached a peak, he became physical, grabbing my sweatshirt, kicking and punching me a bit, and even kicked my dog when she stood between me and him. Now that pushed me over the line. I pulled my knife out. It has a spring-assisted opening so I can open it with one hand pretty fast as well. I told him to stop one more time. He punched me. So I stabbed him multiple times in the legs, chest, and any other place I could reach. Now, as with anyone who just got stabbed, he dropped like a rock. I called 911 and told them some guy had assaulted me, so I stabbed him. The cops show up with guns drawn and order me to drop the knife. I did and proceeded to explain to them what had happened as the ambulance arrived. The guy was taken care of first as he was bleeding out all over the place, and my dog and I got attention next. I would have just ran after stabbing him, but he beat me pretty bad and I was worried about my dog. The guy is still in the hospital, now in a stable condition, and is going to get arrested as soon as he heals enough. I'd like to say that everything turned out okay in the end. I got off scot-free as it was self-defense, and aside from a couple of broken ribs and a sprained wrist, I'm doing fine. My dog was lucky and just got a bruise. And now I have multiple knives on me. Pocket, shoe, wallet, and chest pocket. I've also started a little DIY project where I'm adding small sheets of aluminum to my dog's vest as some extra protection. I've now got 2 trials coming up. The one for the entitled parent got delayed as she is getting a mental health evaluation, and her son's will probably happen when he heals. The end. And imagine how much greater this story would have been if the OP wasn't carrying a knife but instead a pencil.
I once saw him kill 3 men in a bar with a pencil.
Greetings. Normally this was not even a subreddit I follow, but a certain YouTuber entertained me a lot by reading a few select posts from this one. Our story is from a few years ago. I used to work for some kind of full-stack agency as a coder, doing websites, desktop applications, and integrations for customers. Life was good and it got even better. After managing to provide an important customer with 5-star hotels all around my country with a great website and integration to their ERP and also mobile solutions which didn't exist then in my country, a headhunter had found me. He offered nearly triple the salary I was getting and it was impossible to say no to that. I informed my employer, gave him a generous notice of a month so I could wrap up the last projects. Let me warn you that I was a very young and incredibly trusting person then. When my employer told me there were some problems and I had to receive my last salary with the next one, I accepted. Last day of the job. When he asked me to sign the paper that declares I had nothing in debt to me by the company, I signed it. I was a moron. I was young. They never paid, of course. Even though being stiff that way was a lump in my throat, I tried to gulp it down. I worked hard at my new job, trying to prove that I could do better than I did before. But another sneak attack from my ex-employer was the last drop. One day I arrived at the job. My new employer called me to his room. He explained that my ex-employer reached out to him and told him that I was lazy, a liar, worthless, and it wasn't worth the effort to have me as an employee because they were about to sue me so I wouldn't be able to do any work with all the legal stuff. I was beet red. I apologized for being a nuisance and said I'd clear my desk instantly. He laughed cheerfully and said, "You've been working for me for the past 2 weeks. You completed 2 high-quality websites and half of a desktop app. I'll cut my own throat before I fire you." Still, I was so shaken that he had given me permission to leave early. It was Friday anyway. I went home and cried, not because of sorrow but rage. I couldn't touch them. I just couldn't. I couldn't? That's the day I fired up Google and typed, how to hack for the first time of my life. The first response was a forum in my native language. I started reading and gosh, it's hard to read. Coding and hacking are, even though they share the same expertise, vary so much when it comes to details. I confess, it was then impossible for me to think like them, but thankfully the forum crawled with helpful technical tutorials telling me the hows and whys of every exploit I could use. As I said, I was young and a moron. Back then, I had my own mini admin framework that I used in every website I made, and I realized there was a crucial mistake I made in the calls to create new records. Users, pages, new items, galleries, everything. I wasn't checking the authorization at all. It would be near impossible for a hacker to use this because he wouldn't know or get exposed to the exact code, but I knew it. It was about 6 a.m. when I finished reading. I used the public transportation to get to the other end of the city. I found an internet cafe where a young attendant didn't care about IDs and didn't have any security cameras. I sat in a corner and started breaking every single website I had made for them. There was one about pastry materials, a website consisting of over 1,000 ingredients. In the main page, a random assortment from each ingredient type would be shown as a gallery. I replaced about 20 of them with an image of, human waste. Only 20, so a viewer who got used to it wouldn't realize the error until some time has passed. I made the chief physician of a hospital page the angel of death himself, with images and a special bio. People don't look into physician bio pages, so I was sure it wouldn't be found out for long. I made an announcement in Ultra Nationalist Party A's website that their #1 enemy would be giving a speech. In a local newspaper page, I made all old videos link instead to the famous Loituma video where an anime girl spins a leek in her hand. Slowly, a few websites a day, I broke every single website I had made for them. Approximately 60 websites or so. The backlash of the customers seemed to have been furious in a domino effect. He lost his customers' trust and references, which simply means everything in this kind of job. Once the proud owner of one of the best agents in the region now tries to work in a tiny office making a living doing third-rate websites with his meager skill. Even though I never met him during this period, one of my friends was working under him until the last moment. I love listening to his struggle to find out how I did it. They knew I did it, they just had no way of proving it, while losing more and more customers every single day. I don't know if this suits the phrase nuclear, but at least the cold satisfaction I get whenever I walk past his tiny office these days may be considered nuclear. And that has been a PSA for all the young folk out there. Quick word of warning, this next story is gonna be more on the graphic side. I grew up in a small village where every child knows every child, and as I grew up, I integrated with the local basketball team. That's where I met a 1.9 meter and 110 kilogram player. For all you Americans out there, 1.9 meters is 6'3", 110 kg is 242 pounds. Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ.
Now, he was nice to his friends, but went the extra length to protect them and especially avenge them. For example, during a match, a guy broke my finger while I was dunking. Not on purpose, I hope. Well, A tracked him down and beat him up with a baseball bat. The guy was a prospect for a national level team, but became a cripple. I met him a couple years later and he was limping from that aggression. Back to the story. When we entered high school, A started practicing Muay Thai and dealing MDMA. At the end of the school year, he was the student's national champion in Thai boxing and was making over 20K per month dealing. His dad was a judge and his mom a commissary. He had the knowledge and nobody was really suspecting it. Fast forward to the end of the second year. A is now at the age of driving and has a car his parents gave him. He just won his second championships. As I was coming to his high school to see him and catch a ride, I see a commotion. As I arrived, he was beating a guy to a pulp. I'm talking fist bleeding, punching a guy that was unconscious. I see that his girlfriend is frightened, so I go talk to her. Are you okay? You look frightened. Are you cold? Do you need a hot chocolate or something? And while I was giving her my jacket, she tells me the guy slapped her ass and said he could not wait till the end of the day to have fun with his friends and her. Yup, this city wasn't a nice place and there were a lot of gang rapes happening, especially in her high school. So she called A and he proceeded to destroy him. After a while, A stands and asks the crowd where the guy's friends are, since they deserve the same treatment, and proceeds to hey, OP, can you bring her to some place for food or anything? I will pay you back. And then goes to his car and drives on the unconscious guy. I was still trying to have her come because I knew it would become ugly. I don't think I will ever forget the sound of a leg popping, and I kind of ruined my jacket by puking from the sound. Masculine much. Somebody ended up calling the cops and an ambulance. Fast forward a couple months, A is in trial, but he was a straight A student, star of a sport, and nobody knew about the dealing. He got off pretty easy by saying, I needed to protect my girl. This was a gang of criminals, which is true, their judicial file was huge, and making an example because next year I won't be there, but she still will. No jail time, just a huge fee. But it doesn't end there. The friends of the guys were there, the same friends that wanted to have fun with the girlfriend. Fast forward a couple weeks. He stalked them, and when they were isolated, proceeded to beat them to a pulp. At least, that's what he told me during our last encounter. After that, I integrated to a university far from my own home. I saw him again at the end of my PhD, roughly 9 years after these events. He stopped dealing and opened a dojo where they teach various martial arts and especially self-defense to women, with the funds from his deals. He came clean to his family after 5 years. No legal action is possible against him at this point, and he is married with a son to the girlfriend. To really end the story, the son is named after his brother. Funny story, his brother used to be best friends with my brother. They grew up together and played in the same basketball team. Once in high school, they were still friends. While I was away, some guys tried to rob my little brother and his brother intervened but got stabbed. Once he got better, he got into MMA and proceeded to avenge himself only to end up being gutted on a sidewalk. The guys who did it ended up in prison. This was the event that made A stop his illegal activities. Now he's a math teacher in our little village middle school. I hope you enjoyed the story. Man, don't you just miss childhood? Smashing people with baseball bats, running them over with cars, and dealing MDMA. Ah, good times. Hey, if you like this video, make sure you leave a like rating and a comment. The more good feedback we get, the more of these videos we can make. Subscribe now and hit the bell icon because this show is becoming weekly. So keep it up, guys. Cheers!